America isn't running out of money. It's running out of everyday life 2025. America isn't collapsing because of war or a financial crash. It's collapsing because familiar doors are quietly shutting. No one expected the day we walk in to buy the cheapest thing and walk out empty-handed. Not because the shelves are bare, but because we can no longer afford to live the way we used to. Party City sells joy, goes bankrupt. Rite Aid sells medicine, disappears from towns. Dollar General sells cheap goods, but the poor no longer have money. Five Below promises under $5, now just an empty promise. This is no longer a story about stores. It's the sign of a nation being drained by the smallest things. Not an economic recession, but a recession of everyday life. When places that sell joy, sell medicine, and sell cheap are dying, we must ask, is America losing money or losing its very soul? And 12. Party City, the funeral home of joy. In America, no one ever thought a party could go bankrupt. Yet in 2025, Party City, the self-proclaimed king of packaged happiness, is fading away like a deflated balloon after a birthday. A store once glowing with balloons, candles, and banners now hangs a sign that reads, "Everything must go," like a death notice. No one comes to celebrate a birthday. They come to buy the remains of a party. Party City didn't just sell balloons. They sold memories. The smile of a child standing next to a cake. The moment parents nervously held a camera to capture a childhood. They sold the feeling that no matter how exhausting life becomes, we still have a reason to light a candle. But in today's America, where bills grow faster than happiness, people can no longer afford to buy memories. From late 2024 to 2025, Party City filed for bankruptcy for the second time, closing nearly 700 stores. Not a rebirth, not restructuring, but more like unplugging the life support of a dying patient, leaving a brand fading away in silence. If Walmart is dying from theft, Best Buy from Amazon, and Rite Aid from healthcare costs, then Party City dies from something stranger and more bitter: helium. The material that creates the soul of balloons has skyrocketed in price. A bunch of balloons that once cost $5 now costs $25.60. When joy becomes a luxury, people still celebrate, but they don't celebrate at Party City anymore. They decorate themselves, buy from Temu, Shein. Joy doesn't disappear. It simply leaves the one who used to sell it. Party City didn't die because people forgot about parties, but because they no longer have the means to be happy. When a nation has fewer birthdays, fewer graduation banners, fewer candles blown out, the recession is no longer in the banks. It has eaten into the spirit. No one cries when a balloon deflates, but the emptiness of the party is terrifying. Has the Party City store near you gone dark? If it has, where will your next party find its joy? 11. Joann. When America no longer has time to dream. At Party City, Americans no longer have money to celebrate. At Joann, they no longer have the energy to dream. A country that once encouraged people to make everything themselves to save money now abandons the very place that sells thread, fabric, needles, the things that once symbolized patience and creativity for the middle class. Joann used to be crowded with people lining up to choose fabric, cutting ribbons for keepsakes. Now there are only 70% off printouts and employees watching rolls of fabric gather dust. No one fights over a spool of thread anymore, because the dream of making life beautiful has become a luxury. The crisis didn't kill Joann with a strong punch. It killed with silence. The silence of customers who never came back after realizing ordering online was cheaper. The silence of those who once sewed their own curtains, but now choose cheap ones from Amazon. Not because they like them, but because they no longer have the time to live decently. Every 1-meter ruler in the store now only measures the distance between reality and the naive optimism of the craft industry. Joann didn't die from lack of demand. It died because America is exhausted. Workers no longer have time to sit and sew something. Families don't have the money to turn ideas into products. Mothers who once took their kids to pick fabric for toys now have to calculate the cost of milk, electric bills, and insurance premiums. Handmade happiness loses to monthly bills. And then, when the final curtain is pulled down, people realize the death of Joann is not just the end of a retail chain. It is the obituary of a lifestyle America once took pride in, creating happiness with your own 2 hands. Now, even happiness must be bought cheaply, shipped fast, and hopefully with a promo code. Is this store still lit where you live? 10. GameStop. The classic arena being erased. Once the sanctuary of American youth, where gamers crowded in to try new controllers, wait for newly released discs, and show off their loot as if they had just won a real-life PvP match. GameStop didn't just sell games. It sold the feeling of touching, of excitement, of standing in front of shelves like standing inside an arena. But in 2025, that arena is turning into wasteland. The store is as empty as a lobby that can't find a match, and every closing store sign feels like a game over button for an entire era. In the 2024 fiscal year, GameStop closed more than 970 stores, and 2025 continues to shut down a significant number of stores. Not because there are no gamers. On the contrary, gaming is booming, just not in stores. It's exploding on Steam, Xbox Game Pass, PlayStation Store, Epic, Nintendo eShop, places where you don't pay with a smile to a cashier, you just click Buy Now. Americans still play games, they just don't go to GameStop to buy them anymore. GameStop's death is the victory of convenient laziness, where download speed defeats the thrill of breaking the seal on a new box. GameStop didn't die because it lost the fight, but because the battlefield changed. From selling discs to selling the experience, but when that experience is replaced by a click, the whole model becomes obsolete. In the digital library, no one needs boxes, manuals, or bonus posters. And the very thing that once created the magic of physical games, the feeling of ownership, has turned into floating data on the cloud. People say GameStop should adapt, but ask yourself, how can a store built on touching, lining up, unboxing, compete with an algorithm that recommends the perfect game for you? When kids buy games online, who still needs a place that once felt less like a store and more like a tiny stadium of passion? If you ever told your friends after school, "Let's go to GameStop," today that sentence is just like an old chat message in your memory. But what about you? Do you still buy physical games? Or have you switched entirely to digital? Comment. Physical or digital? Let's see which generation is winning this game. 9. Big Lots. The discount store that sold hope. If Family Dollar died because the poor no longer had money to buy cheap goods, then Big Lots is dying from a more subtle tragedy. In America 2025, there isn't enough hope left to decorate life. No one goes to Big Lots to survive. People go there because they want life to feel a little more comfortable. A sofa at 50% off so watching TV doesn't hurt their back. A cheap, nice bedsheet set so the bedroom doesn't feel depressing. A $15 desk lamp so the house feels a bit warmer. Big Lots doesn't sell essentials. It sells things that help poor people feel like they also deserve comfort. And in 2025, that very comfort has become a luxury. In just 1 year, Big Lots closed between 200 to 400 stores, liquidating warehouses across the country. The scene inside these stores looks like an emergency room removing its final machines. Empty shelves, dim temporary lighting, exhausted workers, and "everything must go" signs hanging like a will. The biggest irony is this. Big Lots exists because of the poor, but the poor no longer have money to improve their lives, not even with a tablecloth. Inflation turned discount goods into pointless goods. An American family now has to choose between electricity, medicine, and gasoline. When people are fighting to survive, they no longer have the need to make life feel better. Big Lots didn't lose due to competition. It lost because the very class that sustained it is disappearing from the consumer market. The class that was poor, but still wanted to live decently. When Big Lots disappears, no one will cry. No one will panic over the lack of a cheap sofa. But America will lose something small yet important. The hope that even when you're poor, you can still live a little comfortably. Is Big Lots still open where you live? Have you ever bought something there just to make life feel a little nicer? 8. Rite Aid, a dying pharmacy in a sick nation. In 2025, Rite Aid isn't just closing stores. It's pulling the plug on communities that depend on it. After its 2024 bankruptcy, the chain continues to erase hundreds of locations in areas with no alternatives. Walgreens can leave. CVS can abandon a market. But Rite Aid is often the last pharmacy within a 20-30-mile radius. What makes Rite Aid different from every collapsing retailer is this. It doesn't sell decorations. It doesn't sell discounted sofas. It doesn't sell video games. It sells medicine, something that should never be allowed to go bankrupt. And ironically, America in 2025 needs medication more than ever. Chronic disease, depression, anxiety, medical costs rising out of control. Yet the place that sells medicine is the one that can't afford to exist. Rite Aid isn't dying because of technology, or because it lost customers, or because its products are outdated. It's dying because Americans are too sick, too poor, and too isolated to sustain an expensive healthcare system. Rising employee insurance costs, losses from generic drugs, and legal battles tied to opioids pushed the chain over the edge. When a pharmacy must pay for its past instead of healing the present, the future becomes a predetermined ending. The harshest irony. The pharmacy is suffocated by the very people who need medicine. No one buys more vitamins, joint medication, hypertension drugs than seniors. But seniors live in poorer areas where stores lose money. They are treated as not profitable enough to serve. Rite Aid isn't collapsing because Americans are healthier, but because they are sicker than the system can afford. You can live without birthday balloons or video games, but without a pharmacy, what you lose isn't a product. It's the belief that someone is still taking care of you. A population sicker than ever, yet with fewer places to buy medicine. That is America in 2025. Have any pharmacies disappeared where you live? Comment your city so we can verify together. And if you want to keep following the real changes happening across America, like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next part. 7. Family Dollar. Where even poverty isn't cheap anymore. If Party City died because America can no longer afford to celebrate, GameStop died because memories were replaced by a click, and Rite Aid died in a sick nation, then Family Dollar died because the poor became too poor to buy cheap goods. It sounds absurd, but it is the most honest tragedy of the 2025 economy. A chain once seen as a lifeline for America's working class now hangs the same sign everywhere. Everything must go. In early 2025, parent company Dollar Tree announced it would sell the entire Family Dollar division and close more than 600 stores. Not because there weren't customers, but because customers no longer had money. A business born from economic crisis is being strangled by that same crisis. Family Dollar never competed with luxury, brands, or shopping experience. It made only one promise: everything is cheap. But inflation erased that promise from its price tags. A bottle of shampoo that once cost $1 now costs over $4. Laundry detergent jumped from $2 to $7. When cheap goods are no longer cheap, those who relied on them have no choice but to walk away. The most painful paradox: low-income Americans have become so poor that they can't afford products meant for poor people. They drive farther to shop cheaper at Walmart, hunt for deals on Amazon, and are willing to wait for shipping just to save a few dollars. The very things that once defined Family Dollar, right here, right now, low price, have disappeared along with the empty wallets of its customers. Family Dollar isn't disappearing because of a commercial failure. It's disappearing because the very group that kept it alive has been financially exhausted. When even poverty is no longer cheap, that is the deepest sign of a nation in decline. 6. Kohl's. The store that doesn't know who it's selling to. When you walk into Kohl's, you get a strange feeling. Who are we buying this for? It's not classy like Macy's, not cheap like Walmart, not youthful like Target, and not stylish like H&M. Kohl's stands in the middle of every choice, and because of that, no one chooses Kohl's. This isn't a business failure. It's the death of a brand that doesn't know who it is. Kohl's runs discounts all year, constant coupons, Black Friday, 365 days. Yet Americans still don't believe they're getting a deal. When a store has to shout that it's on sale, it means it has lost its most important value: trust. Middle-aged shoppers who were once loyal have left, not because of price, but because they don't want to see themselves wearing outdated clothes inside a store, even more outdated than they are. While other retail chains collapse due to lack of customers, Kohl's is full of people walking in and leaving empty-handed. They come to look, to compare, and then buy somewhere else. The CEO once attempted a partnership with Amazon to bring in traffic, but that only revealed a painful truth. Kohl's no longer knows what it exists to sell, so it turned itself into a pickup drop-off point. Kohl's isn't dying because it lost to competition. It's dying because it no longer has a reason to exist in the customer's mind. When a brand loses its identity, discounts become cries for help mistaken as advertising. Have you ever actually bought something at Kohl's? Or just walked around and left? Say honestly how it felt. Let's see how many people feel the same. 5. Walgreens. The giant pharmacy that's destroying its own trust. Americans once saw Walgreens as the final safe station of health. A place that didn't need to be fancy, didn't need to be cheap, as long as it could be trusted. But in 2025, the very place that sells medicine has become something that makes Americans stressed. Thousands of stores are closing not because there are no patients, but because they can't afford the cost of helping them get well. The most tragic part isn't the hundreds of millions in losses, but the moment an elderly person stands in front of a locked medicine cabinet. They see drug prices rising, glass cases locked due to theft, and employees exhausted because there are only 2 people running the entire store. Walgreens has turned a place of healing into a place of tension. The irony: to fight shrink, Walgreens is locking up everything, from toothpaste to cold medicine. But when customers have to ring a bell and wait for someone just to buy shampoo, they'd rather leave. Revenue isn't dropping because the economy is weak, but because buying a bottle of medicine now feels like committing a crime. Walgreens calls it strategic restructuring. Customers call it abandoning the people who need medicine. When a pharmacy forces the sick to drive 20-30 miles, wait 4 to 5 days for prescriptions by mail, or diagnose themselves on Google because they can't reach a pharmacist, then the brand no longer represents healthcare. If Rite Aid collapses because of debt, and CVS fails because it cut too many workers, Walgreens is falling because it has lost the only thing that makes a pharmacy valuable: kindness at the moment when people are most vulnerable. Do you still feel safe walking into Walgreens? Or do you go there only because you have no other choice? 4. Bath and Body Works. Cheap perfume has become a bitter luxury. No one ever imagined that a store selling scented soap could become a symbol of economic decline. Yet in 2025, Bath and Body Works, once the American addiction for the smell of happiness, with its fragrant candles, vanilla body washes, and winter body mists, is now being left behind like a scent that has faded. Americans still bathe, still spray fragrances. They just can't afford to smell good like they used to. The painful part isn't the products. It's the moment customers realize that a $14 body wash now costs more than $20, and a candle is priced like 2 meals. Bath and Body Works once thrived on the feeling of affordable but classy, but now it's just expensive and not classy. People walk in, sniff a few scents, then quickly leave, like addicts afraid of the price tag. Mall stores are shutting their lights, not because people don't want to feel beautiful, but because they must prioritize paying for medicine, insurance, and food. When a society has to choose between fragrance and the electric bill, vanilla will always lose. Bath and Body Works isn't collapsing because its products got worse, but because the dream of self-care has become a luxury for the middle class. Ironically, the brand that once defined self-care is now proving a harsh truth. You can't take care of yourself when you're just trying to survive. Maybe Bath and Body Works won't die tomorrow, but if scent no longer smells good to America's wallets, its future will fade like a fragrance lost in the air. Would you still spend $20 on a scented candle? Or are you now prioritizing the smell of money in your wallet? 3. Macy's. When a symbol doesn't die in sales, but in memory. If Rite Aid makes Americans worried, if Bath and Body Works makes wallets hurt, then Macy's makes the whole country uneasy. What's disappearing is not just a store, but a piece of American memory. Not everyone bought from Macy's, but almost everyone has walked past it, under bright city lights, inside malls once glowing like a stage. In 2025, Macy's is closing more than 150 stores, cutting thousands of employees, and selling off buildings that were once points of pride. But the saddest part isn't financial loss. It's the silence. A massive multi-story store now echoes with lonely footsteps, like a museum for a consumer dream that has expired. Macy's once sold affordable luxury for the middle class, a taste of elegance that ordinary people could still afford to touch. But when the middle class no longer has enough money to feel elegant, Macy's loses its reason to exist. Amazon didn't kill Macy's. High-interest credit cards, rising food costs, and crushing healthcare bills did. When people are struggling just to survive, they no longer need to look like they're doing well. Maybe Macy's will survive as real estate, rental apartments, schools, new shopping complexes. But what Macy's contributed to America, holiday seasons, packed Black Fridays, gifts wrapped with excitement, is gone. Not because the company failed, but because the society no longer resembles the era that created it. Do you remember the last thing you bought at Macy's? Or do you only remember how it felt to be in the store? Because that feeling disappeared before the products did. 2. Five Below. No longer under $5, and no longer a store with a purpose. Five Below once promised something simple: everything under $5. A small promise, but a comfort for an America growing poorer. People didn't need luxury, didn't need brands. They just needed cheap and breathable prices. But in 2025, Five Below broke the very promise that kept it alive. Walk into the store now, and what do you see? $6, $10, $15, even $25. The shelves look like a joke in a country pretending to be okay. The brand still says Below, yet the prices climb like they're running a marathon. Even a child can spot the irony. Five Below has become Five Betrayed. The $5 of broken trust. And here's the funny part. Americans used to root for Five Below, but now they feel cheated by it. No one blames Louis Vuitton for being expensive. No one blames Apple for being arrogant. But Five Below is different. It was a place where the poor and the struggling middle class found a tiny piece of affordable joy. When even that place abandons them, the feeling isn't disappointment, it's betrayal. Competitors didn't defeat Five Below. Inflation did, forcing it to lie through price tags. When cheap is no longer cheap, the poor have no one on their side. Five Below isn't collapsing because it ran a bad business. It's collapsing because America made it impossible to keep its promise. Do you think Five Below is doing okay? Or has it just turned into a mini Walmart? Do you still believe in under $5? Be honest. What's the last thing you bought there? 1. Dollar General. Cheap for the poor. But the poor are out of money. Dollar General used to symbolize an America that struggled, yet still tried to live decently. No big brands, no fancy malls, just a small store, tired yellow lights, and a plastic basket filled with items cheap enough that anyone could buy them. But in 2025, something frightening has happened. Poor Americans can no longer afford cheap goods. Many Dollar General stores now look abandoned. One employee running the entire shift, acting as cashier, stocker, and security guard all at once. Flickering lights, empty shelves, discount signs masking a painful truth. No one is buying. Early 2025 saw more than 400 stores shut down or halt operations, and the plan to open 3 new stores per day, a strategy sustained for over a decade, has been completely scrapped. The irony is bitter. Dollar General survived on struggling communities, but those very communities are collapsing. With gas, rent, insurance, and medicine rising to unbearable levels, Americans are putting down their baskets. They're no longer choosing the cheapest option. They're choosing nothing at all. Dollar General isn't falling because of poor management, nor because of competition. It's falling because the very group that kept it alive has lost its ability to consume. When the poor can't afford cheap goods anymore, the economy is rotting from the bottom up. Where you live, is Dollar General crowded or empty? Be honest. What do you see on the shelves, products, or silence? When the place that sells joy goes bankrupt, the place that sells medicine disappears, and even the place that sells cheap goods becomes too expensive. This is no longer just business. It is a sign of a country shrinking the way it lives. No one is knocking these chains down. People simply no longer have enough to keep them alive. The problem isn't that they collapse, but that we are living differently, because we no longer have enough to live the way we used to. In your area, which store disappeared first? Name it, so the real picture of America can become clearer.